Welcome, Week 11 stacks. Before we get into it, Jim, I was just telling you, in the wide receiver section, I forgot someone. Terrelle Pryor's on my cheat sheet for this week, and a guy that I really like. He's going back home to Pittsburgh, basically. He's going to have a bunch of people there, so there's the narrative aspect. But I also just don't think this Pittsburgh secondary is very good, and his price all the way down $5,600 for a guy who, again, I mentioned with Isaiah Crowell. I do think it's going to be a competitive game. So I wanted to bring up Terrelle Pryor. I think he's a guy who's viable in all of them. But before we get to all of the stacks, let's go review promo code CURVE. Save $2 on a weekly premium membership at rotocurve.com. What do you get included with it? Besides the discount, you get rankings, projections, cheat sheets for each week of the NFL season. You get must-have tools like DVP, points per attempt, etc. You get optimized DFS lineups for DraftKings and FanDuel, and you get access to player ownership percentage and much, much more. Again, use promo code CURVE. Pay only $5 instead of $7, so that is a beautiful thing. Now that we've gotten Terrelle Pryor over, let's get to the stacks, Jim. We've kind of gone over, a bunch of quarterbacks, a bunch of receivers. Now let's connect the dots in terms of both game stacks, quarterback, wide receiver stacks, and just stacks that we think have a chance to win tournaments this week. Who do you like this week?
Sure. Got Mariota. He's still a guy that I'm on in tournaments as well. I like him in cash, but I'm fine stacking him with Delaney Walker. I know Rashard Matthews has been scoring, and that pace has been great. But I just think the more bankable guy, the between-the-numbers guy, the red zone guy, is Delaney Walker. You already mentioned how well he played last time out against the Colts. DeQuell Jackson, these guys, Mike Adams, Clayton Geathers, the safeties and linebackers there for the Colts, they're not good in coverage. They haven't been all year. They've been soft against the tight end all year. We saw it in Week 7 with Walker. So I just think it's a kind of a high floor stack there. There is some correlation there. I mean, we saw one game this year where Mariota went off and Walker didn't do anything. But generally, they're gonna produce with a correlation where when Mariota goes off, you're gonna get 25% of that market share to Walker. And then another stack that I'm on is Bortles and Allen Robinson. Robinson's not very expensive, and Bortles is very cheap. I mean, he's like 20th or 22nd or something crazy in quarterback pricing. So you can really make some savings there, still pay up at the other positions. You can get that stack done and then still afford your Le'Veon Bell, still afford to pay up for those premium kind of super ceiling guys. So those are two stacks that I'm identifying that I really like. And this is probably taking one from you, but I also like Andrew Luck and Hilton. I think, the Jason McCourty, these corners for the Titans are you can beat them. They're exploitable. There's no stopper on this team. I mean, McCourty has had like several seasons over 80 tackles. That's not like a good thing for a cornerback when you've had that much production. In IDP, which is a nerdy thing I play, it's good for his stats, but it's revealing about how often he's giving up receptions and how comfortable opposing quarterbacks are targeting him. So those are three stacks that I'm really identifying that I like. They're players that I think you can build around. One more would be Kirk Cousins, and I think it's up to you what you want to do. Kirk Cousins and Jamison Crowder make sense. I think for the upside stack, for if you really want to go up, especially with how beat up the secondary is, how beat up the safeties are, and we just talked about linebackers. The Packers might not have Jake Ryan, their middle linebacker. They don't really have a coverage linebacker to speak of. I think there could be some real fun here if you have Kirk Cousins and Jordan Reed. And the reason that I bring up Reed and Walker is because tight end pricing is so deflated. It's like its own market that you don't really have to pay up. And you might even want to do Brady and Martellus Bennett. It's up to you. What do you think about maybe, going that route, especially if Gronk's out? Because Tom Brady, 47% of his fantasy points have gone to the tight ends. So that's incredible.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I think, we don't do tight ends here. But if there was ever a week to go two tight ends in cash, this is it. I think two guys that really, really, really stand out to me. I know a lot of people are going to like Julius Thomas against the Lions because it's the Lions, but he's not even in the top 3 for me. I think the guys that stand out this week are Delaney Walker and Martellus Bennett, both at reasonable prices as guys who could prove to be wide receiver ones this week. So I think both of them are very stackable with their quarterbacks. I mean, you could go Brady Bennett, you could go Brady Edelman Bennett if you wanted. You go completely contrarian with the blunt fade against the team that's been, so terrible against the run, which I don't know. Or you could even go, if you think the Patriots are going to score 45, you could go Brady, which Bennett and Blunt. They get up because so I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. So I agree with you there. We don't do tight ends, but tight ends this week are definitely big across the board. I think there's a lot of Kirk Cousins stacks to be had this week. I mean, that 26.8 implied total for the team really intrigues me. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, you look at his splits, 95.4 QB rating at home, 91.9 on the road. So they don't even play as well. I think this could be a game where Washington wins. And, they've only allowed 22-ish points per game, which is middle of the road. So I think it could be a game that's like 30-21 type thing where they win and they score a bunch where there's multiple receivers that are viable. So I think, Cousins, Crowder, and either Reed or Jackson could all come through. I really like Kirk Cousins in this one. That's going to be the focus of a lot of my stacks. You mentioned Blake Bortles. You mentioned Andrew Luck, but pretty much otherwise, I'm going to kind of mix and match this week. There are none that are really standing out unless you want to Alex Smith and Tyreek Hill, which I kind of like if you're going to go, in tournaments and spend up elsewhere. But this is not a huge stack week for me as I've been, putting it together. I like Cousins a lot. I like Bortles a lot. I like Mariota a lot. So I've got those stacks in, and then I'm kind of trying to be creative elsewhere when it comes to it. We kind of mentioned some of the quarterbacks we do like. I think Eli Manning and Beckham is one that you and I both like if you want to go that route. I mean, if you're going Beckham and you think the Bears really are not going to have the ball hardly at all, you could go with that. But I'm not getting overly cute with them. I'd rather mix and match my plays as opposed to, go to like Kaepernick and a Torrey Smith or Russell Wilson and a Doug Baldwin. I don't like the spot for Wilson. Go to a Flacco and a Mike Wallace. I don't really like the spot for Flacco. Go to Tyrod Taylor. His value could come from running. Go to Andy Dalton. AJ Green's got some validity, I would say, but, Dalton's ceiling is usually capped at about 22 fantasy points. So if we're going for, the sky's the limit, I think the guys we've discussed are pretty much the guys that are stackable. Do you have any other thoughts at stacks? Maybe we could look at some running back defense stacks. I think that would probably be more viable.
Yeah, I like very good in terms of a stack. I think, we talked for a while about the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season. Kansas City had no pass rush. All of a sudden, over the last 3 weeks, they're a top 5 pass rush. It woke up. It wasn't even personnel based. It wasn't like Justin Houston has done it. He's really not even been active yet. So just schematically, they're playing a much better defense. They're aggressive. I think a lot of it also has to do with the secondary is really playing well. So it could be some coverage sacks going on. But yeah, they're ball hawks. I mean, even without that Jets game, that crazy, what was it, like 6 interception Fitzpatrick game, they're still among the league leaders in takeaways. You mentioned how poorly Winston can play against pressure. I just think there are some upside factors there where multiple turnovers, and then you have Ware eating up the total yards. That's not a bad stack. We didn't really mention, but I don't mind a stack. We mentioned the tight end factor. I don't mind a stack with Stafford. It's hard to identify who it is, I think. For me, it's actually Eric Ebron if you want to be contrarian. I think there's a way that you can make that work. But I don't know what your thoughts are, just because I think there is a lot of volume to be had there in Detroit, but it's almost looking like one of these older Drew Brees teams where it's difficult to tell who you stack with.
Yeah, but that makes it viable on each week if you're going to guess. Because if you guess right, a lot of people are going to think to themselves, this is really annoying. I don't want to do it. So I agree with you there. That those offenses are good to stack because if you hit it correctly, you're moving up, above most of the field. The only other one that I see that's really viable is you mentioned Dez Bryant. How about Dez Bryant and the defense? This doesn't scream to me as a game that's going to be overly high scoring. I actually love the defense this week, even though they're not huge on turnovers and that sort of stuff. But Flacco throws so much that I think against a good group of corners, there will be some interceptions. I have them as one of my 3 projected highest defenses. So, if they're going to get their production from Dez, let's say he goes, 100 and a touchdown, I don't think this is a great game for Zeke. We've seen him face great defenses before and succeed. So if you want to go that route, you could add him in. But I think if there were ever a week to fade Ezekiel Elliott, this would be, one of the very, very, very few. So Dez Bryant in the defense in a game that, I don't think is going to be 35-30 or anything. I think will be in the teens. I think that's a viable strategy this week. Any final words for people this week to go out on? Impose your wisdom.
No, I mean, I just think it's an interesting week. The bye weeks are calming down, so we have a pretty rich, pretty rich slate here, and there's some really fun games. I think we're going to be wanting to target. We've mentioned multiple players and multiple stacks in that Tennessee Indianapolis game, and I think a lot of focus on the Green Bay Washington game is also interesting. And then for paying down, Detroit Jacksonville seems really intriguing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those are definitely some games of focus there. So good luck this week. Get creative. To me, it doesn't feel like this is going to be a week that chalk wins it. This feels like this is going to be, you have some cojones and you set a strange lineup. And that's the kind of week it's going to be. So go nuts. Maybe the CJ Procises, those kind of things, work them in. Guys that, aren't overly like the Le'Veon Bells. That are going to be overly popular. So, again, before we leave, though, promo code CURVE, save $2 on a weekly premium membership. I won't go over it all again, but, optimize lineups, player ownership percentage, DFS tools, all that you need to win. They help me each week. They help Jim each week. We definitely recommend complementing it with your research. It definitely puts it over the top. You only pay $5 instead of $7, so make sure you go ahead and do that. Good luck, everyone, this week. From the Matching T-Shirt Brothers, we say good luck once again, and we are out.